The winter air bit through my gown, but I couldn't feel anything anymore. You became ugly after kids, Stella. You're bad for the brand. The gold leaf gates didn't open. Through the wrought iron, I could see the windows of my own home glowing warm. Movement inside. Enzo's mistress gliding through my hallways, her surgically perfect silhouette wearing my grandmother's diamond necklace. My son's face appeared in the upstairs window, 4 years old, crying, pressing his small palms against the glass. Tomorrow he'd ask the question I couldn't answer. Mommy, why doesn't Daddy want you anymore? Black SUVs rolled up behind me, their headlights cutting through the darkness like searchlights. 6 vehicles, maybe more. The center door opened and a man stepped out, tall, tattooed, wrapped in a coat that cost more than my wedding dress. His eyes held something Enzo's never had, something that looked almost like fury. Get in, Andrew Cole said, his voice quiet but absolute, before he erases you completely. I should have asked who he was. Should have questioned why a mafia boss knew my name, knew where I'd be, knew exactly when I'd need him. But when you're locked out of your own life and someone offers a key, even a blood-stained one, you don't ask what lock it opens. I got in and discovered that protection always comes with chains. The gala was in full swing. Through the gates, I could see everything I'd spent 3 months planning. The ice sculptures catching light like frozen fire. The string quartet had personally auditioned. The champagne fountain I'd argued with Enzo about because he thought it was too much. From where I stood on the cold sidewalk, it looked like a dream. Someone else's dream now. Women in gowns I'd helped select glided across the marble terrace. Men in tuxedos laughed at jokes I couldn't hear. The charity I'd founded, the guest lists I'd curated, the menu I'd taste tested until Enzo complained I was gaining weight. All of it moving forward without me, like I'd never existed at all. I watched Enzo emerge onto the balcony, his arm around her waist. She threw her head back laughing at something he said, and the diamond necklace, my grandmother's necklace, caught the light. The same necklace he'd said was too sentimental to wear to public events when I'd asked. On her throat, apparently, it was perfect. The valets were staring at me. I could see them whispering, phones already out. By morning, I'd be a headline. Socialite has breakdown outside own charity gala. Enzo would use it in court, evidence of my deteriorating mental state. I should leave, should walk away before the photos got worse, but my legs wouldn't move. I stood there in my gown, the silver one I'd been so excited about, the one that had made me feel beautiful when I tried it on last week, and watched my life continue without me. A hand settled on my shoulder. Not grabbing, not pulling, just there, warm and solid and real. They don't see you, Andrew Cole's voice came from behind me, low and certain. But I do. I hadn't heard him approach. The SUVs idled at the curb like patient predators, but he'd walked right up to me while I'd been hypnotized by my own ghost story. Every single person in there, he continued, his thumb moving slightly against my bare shoulder, is performing, playing their part in Enzo's little theater. You know what you are? I shook my head, not trusting my voice. Free. The word hit me like a slap. Free. Standing on a sidewalk in freezing weather, locked out of my own home, about to lose my son? That was freedom? You just don't know it yet. His hand slid down my arm, his fingers finding mine. But you will. Inside, someone raised a glass for a toast. I saw Enzo's mouth moving, probably thanking everyone for coming to his event, probably not mentioning my name at all. Andrew's hand tightened around mine. Ready to stop watching? He asked. I turned away from the gates, away from the light and the laughter and the life that had already forgotten me. Yes. The estate wasn't what I expected. No tacky gold fixtures or leather furniture screaming new money. Andrew Cole's home was old power, stone and iron and windows that had watched generations rise and fall. The kind of place that made Enzo's McMansion look like a child's playhouse. A woman in black appeared the moment we entered, her movements efficient and silent. She took my coat without a word, her eyes flickering over my gala gown with something that might have been sympathy. "Maria will show you to your room," Andrew said. "You'll want to change." I followed Maria up a staircase that belonged in a museum, my heels clicking against marble that had probably cost more than my wedding. She led me down a hallway lined with portraits of stern-faced men who all had Andrew's eyes, then stopped at a door carved with something that looked like a family crest. The room beyond was larger than the master bedroom I'd shared with Enzo. A 4-poster bed dominated the space, but my attention caught on the dress laid out across it. Black, elegant, nothing like the soft pastels Enzo had always insisted made me look approachable. Maria gestured to an adjoining bathroom. "Take your time." The door closed with a soft click, and I was alone. I peeled off the gala gown, the one I thought would make me invisible enough to avoid Enzo's criticism, and let it pool on the floor like a silver corpse. In the bathroom, steam already rose from a drawn bath. Someone had thought of everything. I sank into water hot enough to hurt and let myself finally feel it. The humiliation, the rage, the terror of what came next. My son's face at the window. Enzo's casual cruelty. That woman wearing my grandmother's necklace like a trophy. When the water cooled, I stood, dried off, slipped into the black dress. It fit perfectly, which should have disturbed me more than it did. Then I saw myself in the full-length mirror. The woman staring back wasn't the one Enzo had described. Not ugly, not used up, not desperate. My hair fell in dark waves around my face. I'd stopped straightening it months ago when Enzo stopped noticing. My body, the one he'd called ruined, curved in ways the dress seemed designed to celebrate rather than hide. And my eyes. God, my eyes. They looked like they could burn down the world. "He lied to you," Andrew's voice came from the doorway. I should have startled, should have demanded privacy, but I couldn't look away from my own reflection. "About all of it." "I know," I said, and realized it was true. I'd known for years, I just hadn't had the strength to admit it. "Do you want it back? Your old life?" I watched the woman in the mirror smile, sharp and cold, and nothing like the soft, placating expression I'd worn for a decade. "No, I want him to pay for taking it." The restaurant was exactly the kind of place Enzo loved. All floor-to-ceiling windows and tables spaced far enough apart that everyone could see everyone else's business while pretending not to. He'd taken me here for our 5th anniversary, back when he still bothered with anniversaries. Now he sat at the best table with her, holding court with the city's venture capital crowd like a king showing off his new queen. She laughed at something he said, touching his arm with manicured fingers that had never changed a diaper or cleaned up vomit at 3 a.m. "You don't have to do this," Andrew said from beside me. We were still in the car, parked across the street where we could see everything. "Yes, I do. Once you walk in there, it starts. No going back." I looked down at the envelope in my lap. Divorce papers, drawn up by Andrew's lawyers in less than 24 hours. The prenup Enzo had insisted on wouldn't save him, not when Andrew's team had found 3 offshore accounts and evidence of asset concealment that made my lawyer's eyes light up like Christmas. "Good," I said, and opened the car door before I could change my mind. The maitre d' recognized me immediately. His professional smile faltered. "Mrs. Moretti, Table for one," Andrew said from behind me, his presence making the maitre d' step back. "Next to Mr. Moretti's party." We were seated before anyone could object, close enough that I could hear Enzo mid-story about his new investment strategy, close enough to see the exact moment he noticed me. His face went white, then red. "Stella, what are you—" "Good afternoon, Enzo." I kept my voice steady, conversational. Every head in the restaurant had already turned our way. Perfect. "I thought you'd want these in person." I stood, walked the 3 steps to his table, and placed the envelope between his untouched appetizer and her wine glass. She looked at me with wide eyes, probably expecting tears or shouting or some desperate scene she could tell her friends about later. "Divorce papers," I said clearly, making sure the nearby tables could hear. I've cited adultery, financial fraud, and parental alienation. You'll be served formally tomorrow, but I know how you hate surprises at the office." Enzo's jaw worked soundlessly. Around us, phones were already out. By tonight, this would be on every society blog in the city. This isn't... He grabbed my wrist, his grip tight enough to bruise. Andrew was there before I could blink, his hand closing over Enzo's with enough pressure to make my husband's fingers release immediately. "Touch her again," Andrew said pleasantly, "and they'll never find your hands." The restaurant had gone completely silent. I turned and walked out, Andrew falling into step beside me. My heart hammered against my ribs, adrenaline singing through my veins like electricity. Behind me, I heard Enzo's voice rising in explanation, in damage control, in the desperate scramble of a man watching his carefully constructed world crack. I smiled all the way to the car. I found the room 3 days after the restaurant incident. I'd been exploring the estate, restless and unable to sleep. Andrew had business in the city, and the house felt too quiet without his presence anchoring it. I told myself I was just walking, just learning the layout of my temporary home. I told myself I wasn't snooping. The door at the end of the east wing was unlocked. Inside, the walls were covered in corkboards. Photographs, documents, timelines, all of it centered on one subject: me. There was a photo from my college graduation, my smile wide and hopeful. Another from my engagement party, holding up my ring while Enzo kissed my cheek. My wedding, my baby shower, the charity gala where I'd worn yellow and Enzo had told me I looked like a lemon. But there were others, ones I'd never seen. Me leaving my doctor's office, pregnant and alone because Enzo had forgotten the appointment. Me sitting in my car outside my son's preschool, crying. Me at the grocery store, comparing prices because Enzo had cut my allowance again. Someone had been watching me for years. I was 15 when I saw you the first time. I spun around. Andrew stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable. "A university lecture," he continued, walking into the room like he'd expected to find me here. "Business ethics. You asked the professor if corporate social responsibility was performative or actually effective. He couldn't answer. You stood your ground until he admitted most of it was theater." He stopped in front of a photograph. Me, at 19, laughing with friends outside a coffee shop. "I thought about you for years. Then one day, I saw your engagement announcement in the paper to Enzo Moretti." His jaw tightened. "I knew what he was, what he'd do to you." "Then why didn't you warn me?" My voice came out sharper than I intended. "Would you have listened? To a stranger telling you your fiancé was a narcissistic con artist who'd married 3 women before you for their family connections?" He turned to face me. "You loved him, or thought you did." I looked at the walls again. Years of surveillance, years of watching me suffer and doing nothing. "You waited," I whispered. "You watched him destroy me and you just waited." "I waited until you were ready." Andrew moved closer, his eyes holding mine. "Until you'd seen enough, suffered enough, until you'd finally be willing to burn it all down instead of trying to save it." "That's not protection, that's obsession." He didn't flinch from the word. "I've been obsessed with you since I was a boy. I bought out Enzo's debts, destroyed his investors, orchestrated his financial collapse, all to get to this moment, to you." The room felt smaller suddenly, colder. "What do you want from me?" Andrew's smile was almost sad. "Everything, but I'll settle for your revenge." The contract sat on Andrew's desk like a coiled snake. "Read it carefully," he said, pouring himself whiskey from a crystal decanter that probably cost more than my car. "Once you sign, there's no walking away." I'd been at the estate for a week. 7 days of lawyers telling me Enzo had filed for sole custody, claiming I'd abandoned our son. 7 days of watching my phone fill with messages from friends who suddenly couldn't meet for coffee, couldn't return calls, couldn't risk association with the woman Enzo was painting as unstable. 7 days of my son sleeping in a house where that woman tucked him in at night. I picked up the contract. The letterhead was simple, just Andrew's name and understated print, but the weight of the paper told me everything about its cost. Protection services, I read aloud. In exchange for, I flipped to the second page. Exclusive representation in all legal, financial, and personal matters. Jesus Christ, Andrew, this is basically ownership. It's partnership. He sat across from me, his expression unreadable. You get my lawyers, my connections, my protection. I get complete authority to act on your behalf against Enzo and anyone else who threatens you. What does that mean exactly? Complete authority. It means when someone needs to disappear, you don't ask questions. The whiskey in his glass caught the lamplight like amber. Outside the study windows, rain had started to fall. Somewhere in the city, my son was asking where I was, if I was coming back, if I still loved him. I need my son, I said quietly. I know. Enzo will fight dirty. He'll use everything. My postpartum depression, the weight I gained, the fact that I'm here with you. Let him. Andrew leaned forward. Stella, I have judges who owe me favors and prosecutors who won't touch your case. I have financial records that prove Enzo's been hiding assets for years. I have photographs of him with her while you were pregnant. He paused. I can bury him so deep his own mother won't find him. Why? The question burst out before I could stop it. Why do all of this for me? I told you, I've wanted you since I was 15 years old. No shame in his voice, no apology. This is me making sure I get what I want. I should have been terrified, should have run, but all I could think about was my son's face at the window, crying for a mother who couldn't reach him. I picked up the pen. If I sign this, you promise me I get him back? I promise you Enzo loses everything he ever took from you. The pen touched paper. My hand shook, but it moved. Signature, date, witness line where Andrew's security chief appeared from nowhere to sign. When it was done, Andrew took the contract and locked it in his safe. Welcome to the family, Stella. The call came at 2 a.m. He's moving. Andrew's voice was sharp, alert. Private airfield. Enzo just chartered a jet to Monaco, non-extradition. I was out of bed before he finished speaking, my heart in my throat. My son? Being loaded into a car as we speak. He's running, Stella, taking the boy and disappearing before the custody hearing. My hands shook as I pulled on clothes. Andrew had warned me this might happen. Enzo's investment firm was hemorrhaging clients. His mistress had left him when the money started drying up. His reputation was in free fall, and desperate men did desperate things. But I hadn't believed he'd actually run. Hadn't believed he'd use our son as a hostage. Andrew's wife was waiting in the hallway with 4 men I recognized from his security detail. They were dressed in black, armed, their faces set in expressions that said they'd done this before. The airfield is 40 minutes away, Andrew said, handing me a tablet showing a GPS tracker. A red dot moves steadily through the city streets. We have people positioned at every exit. He won't get that plane off the ground. What if he sees us coming? What if he... I couldn't finish the sentence. Couldn't voice what Enzo might do if he felt cornered. Andrew's hand found my shoulder. He won't touch that boy, I promise you. We took 3 vehicles. I sat in the front car with Andrew, watching the red dot on the screen like my life depended on it, because it did. My son was in one of those cars ahead of us, probably confused, probably scared, probably asking why they were leaving in the middle of the night. The airfield appeared through the darkness, a stretch of private tarmac with a small terminal and a jet already warming its engines. Enzo's car pulled up to the plane, and I saw him emerge, carrying my son in his arms. My baby was still in his pajamas. Now, Andrew said into his phone. Vehicles poured from every direction, SUVs blocking the runway, men emerging with weapons drawn. Enzo froze, my son clutched to his chest like a shield. I was out of the car before Andrew could stop me.
Enzo! My voice cut across the tarmac. Put him down. Stay back. His voice was ragged, panicked. You'll what? I kept walking, my hands visible, my heart hammering. Hurt your own son? Run and make him a fugitive? Destroy the one thing you actually created that was worth something? My son saw me, his little face crumpled. Mommy! Let him go, I said softly. It's over. For a moment, I thought Enzo might actually fight. Then Andrew's men moved closer, and something in him broke. He set my son down. My baby ran to me, and I caught him, and everything else disappeared. My son was asleep upstairs, finally calm after the terror of the airfields. I'd held him for hours, breathing in the scent of his hair, promising him he was safe, that Mommy wasn't going anywhere ever again. Now I stood in Andrew's study, watching him pour whiskey he wouldn't drink. You knew, I said. You knew Enzo was going to run. I suspected. The charter was confirmed 3 hours before he moved. 3 hours? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. You could have stopped him before he ever got to my son, before he put him in a car in the middle of the night, before he traumatized a 4-year-old. Andrew's hand tightened on the glass. I needed you to see it, what he's capable of. Needed me to see it? My voice rose. He's my son, Andrew, not a lesson, not a piece in whatever game you're playing. This isn't a game. Then what is it? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you've been orchestrating my entire life. The surveillance, the files, buying Enzo's debts, destroying his business. I moved closer. Tell me the truth, all of it. He set down the glass and turned to face me. In the lamplight, he looked older, tired. Enzo came to my father when I was 17. He needed money to save his first startup. My father was expanding operations, needed legitimate business friends, and though offered his company in exchange for the capital. Your father was Mafia. My father was the Mafia in this city. Andrew's jaw tightened. Enzo worked for us for 5 years, did everything we asked. Then he wanted out, wanted to go legitimate, build a respectable life. My father agreed, for a price. The room felt colder suddenly. What price? A wife. Someone with the right connections, the right family name, the right face to make Enzo look like he'd never been anything but clean. Andrew's eyes met mine. You were the price, Stella. Your family's social standing, your charity connections, your respectability. The words hit me like a physical blow. No. He researched you for 6 months before your chance meeting at that gallery opening, engineered every interaction, made you fall in love with someone who never existed. Andrew's voice was hard now, angry. And my father approved the arrangement, let Enzo buy his freedom with your life. I sank into a chair, my legs unable to hold me. 10 years of marriage, 10 years of trying to be enough, to be perfect, to understand why nothing I did ever made him love me the way he had in the beginning. Because the beginning had been a lie. All of it. When did you buy the debt? I whispered. The day you got engaged. Andrew knelt in front of me. I've owned Enzo for 8 years. I just let him think he was free. The auction house was packed with everyone who mattered in the city. Old money in the front rows, new money desperately trying to look comfortable in the back, and journalists with cameras ready to document whatever scandal might unfold. My family's estate was being sold. The house where I'd spent every summer as a child, where my grandmother had taught me to garden, where I dreamed of bringing my own children someday. Enzo had gotten his hands on it through a loan my father had taken out before he died. A loan Enzo had quietly bought and called in the moment the divorce papers were filed. One last way to hurt me, to take everything that made me who I was. I sat in the 3rd row, Andrew beside me, and watched Enzo take his seat at the front. He hadn't seen me yet,
Probably thought I couldn't afford to be here, let alone bid. The auctioneer took the podium. Ladies and gentlemen, we begin with Lot 47, the Castellane Estate, a historic property spanning 15 acres with the original manor house, guest cottages, and gardens. We'll start the bidding at $2 million. Enzo's paddle went up immediately. $2 million. 2.5, someone called from the back. $3 million. Enzo's voice was confident, bored even, like he'd already won. The bidding climbed, 4 million, 5, 6. One by one, the other bidders dropped out until it was just Enzo and an anonymous phone bidder the auctioneer kept nodding to. 8 million, Enzo said, irritation creeping into his voice now. 8.5, the auctioneer relayed from his phone. 9 million, Enzo's paddle shook slightly. Andrew leaned close to my ear. Now. I raised my paddle. 10 million, I said clearly. The room went silent. Every head turned. Enzo's face drained of color as he finally saw me. Stella, he hissed, you can't. You don't have 12 million, I continued, ignoring him. Going once at 12 million, the auctioneer said, his professional composure barely hiding his excitement at the drama. Enzo stood, his face red. This is fraud. She doesn't have the capital to... 15 million. I stood as well, my voice carrying through the room. Cash, verified by Morgan Stanley this morning. I paused, making sure everyone could hear. Unlike Mr. Moretti, whose assets were frozen yesterday pending investigation into offshore tax evasion. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Cameras flashed. You're lying, Enzo snarled, but his voice cracked. 20 million, I said to the auctioneer, my final offer. The room exploded in whispers. The auctioneer looked at Enzo, who stood frozen, his mouth opening and closing soundlessly. Going once, going twice, the gavel came down. Sold to paddle 247. I walked down the aisle, stopped next to Enzo's seat, and leaned close enough that only he could hear. You called me ugly, bad for the brands. I smiled. How's your brands doing now? The headlines lasted for weeks. Enzo Moretti's spectacular fall from grace became the cautionary tale whispered at every society function. Tax evasion, asset concealment, fraud. By the time Andrew's lawyers were done, Enzo had nothing left but a studio apartment in a neighborhood he'd once called unfortunate and supervised visitation with our son every other Saturday. I won full custody. The judge had taken one look at the attempted kidnapping, the financial crimes, and Enzo's mistress testifying that he'd promised her my jewelry, and the decision was swift. My son adjusted faster than I expected. Children were resilient like that. He had his room at Andrew's estate, our estate now, I supposed, and a new nanny who actually smiled, and a mother who was present instead of performing. 2 months after the auction, I stood in the garden of my family's estate, watching workers restore the fountain my grandmother had loved. Andrew had insisted on keeping the property exactly as I remembered it, down to the rose varieties she planted. You're thinking too loud. Andrew's voice came from behind me. He'd started doing that, appearing when my thoughts got too heavy. I'm thinking about monsters, I said. He moved to stand beside me, his hands in his pockets. Should I be concerned? Enzo was a monster, charming at first, then cruel. He destroyed me slowly, methodically, until I believed everything he said about me. I turned to face Andrew. But you're a monster too, aren't you? Just a different kind. He didn't deny it. Yes. You manipulated everything, watched me suffer, orchestrated an entire financial collapse just to get to me. I paused. That's not love, Andrew. That's obsession. I know. Then why do I feel safe with you? My voice broke slightly. Why does your obsession feel like the only honest thing anyone's ever given me? Andrew reached out slowly, giving me time to pull away. When I didn't, his hand cupped my face with the gentleness that contradicted everything I knew about him. Because I see you. he said quietly. Not the performance, not the trophy wife, not the perfect mother. I see the woman who stood up to a professor at 19, who built a charity from nothing, who walked into that restaurant and destroyed her husband in front of the entire city without flinching. His thumb traced my cheekbone. I see the queen you always were, even when he tried to make you forget. You burned down my entire world to prove that. No, his eyes held mine. I burned down the prison he built around you. Your world is just beginning. My son's laughter drifted from the house. The fountain came to life, water cascading the way it had in my childhood. I kissed Andrew Cole, the monster who'd set me free, and wondered if I'd ever know where his obsession ended and something real began. Maybe it didn't matter. Maybe this was love too, dark and dangerous and mine.
If this story moved you, don't let it end here. Subscribe for more powerful stories like this. Like the video to support the channel, comment your thoughts below. I read them all. And share this story with someone who needs to hear it.